Hello, guys. Today I'm going to present this idea that we have already discussed at school, at least with some of the groups and fully. That is the diseases versus causes. I mean, it's a weird name, if you wish, because it seems that these two things play in the same team. But take a look at these ideas. I mean, is COVID 19 the same as pneumonia? Is HIV the same as AIDS? Is gluten the same as celiac disease? Is a fatty diet the same as a heart attack? I mean, talking about the causes is the same as talking about the disease. Well, today we will see it is not. Okay. So, first idea, the point that diseases may have many different causes. Usually, these causes are combined. Okay, so there is usually more than one cause for each disease, and we will see several examples this year. The first category is chemical diseases. I mean, toxins, poisons, the sting of a bee. Okay, those are toxic substances that affect our body. Another one is nutritional. That is, we saw that last year, the lack of certain nutrients, kwashiorkor, obesity. I mean, different types of diseases that have to do with the lack or the excess of nutrients. Physical diseases, physical causes, that is what we typically call, or what doctors typically call traumas. Okay, that's why we have a traumatologist. Okay, I mean, it's a blow, a high temperature, a lightning. Okay, so physical energy usually uh, causes. Then metabolic diseases, when something is going on with metabolism, any of the chemical reactions in our body is not working properly, and so uh, you suffer some sort of disease. We will see this year diabetes, there is the celiac disease was mentioned before, etc. Degenerative diseases, that is diseases that affect the body in the sense that the body is getting, or some part of the body is getting older than others, to say it in a very, very plain way. You must have heard of uh, Parkinson's or Alzheimer are two typical diseases. Genetical diseases, that is diseases that you acquire through your from your parents directly through the genes, okay, or that you can acquire during your life, but what we can call a mutation. We will see that later on. And then biological causes, okay, biological causes that we typically call pathogens, okay, and this is the type of diseases we want to talk about, okay. The diseases caused by viruses, bacteria, fungi, prototypes, that is what we typically call microbes, all right. And these type of diseases are what we call transmissible diseases, all right. And this is the type of diseases we will talk about now. Other type of diseases we will talk about the rest of the year. Now, examples of transmissible diseases. The transmissible diseases caused by viruses. So, for example, we have flu, okay, and flu is caused by a virus called influenza virus. It has been mentioned these days very frequently. AIDS is another disease we will talk about soon, and it is caused by a virus that is called immunodeficiency virus, human immunodeficiency virus, of the type of viruses of a retrovirus. Okay, but just a curiosity so far. Measles, okay, measles has been mentioned very, very short time ago. There has been some sort of an epidemic of measles, what in Spanish we call sarampion, yes, and the virus that produces it is morbillivirus. Uh, Dengue, we know this one very, very well. Okay, it's caused by a virus called flavivirus, or a group of viruses called flavivirus. And obviously, the pneumonia caused by coronavirus or the COVID 19 that we know very well these days. Another group of microorganisms that cause transmissible diseases is bacteria. A quick run through them is an example tetanus. Okay, this disease is the one that is transmitted by wounds. Okay, especially deep wounds. That's why every time you suffer a deep cut, you have to be given this anti-tetanic uh, vaccine. Okay, we'll talk about vaccines very soon. Cholera, I mention it not because it is very common. There has been an epidemic of cholera many years ago here in Buenos Aires. There are cholera is endemic, that is, it is frequent and usual in other places, but it will be mentioned in the book. Tuberculosis is another disease that was very, very serious many years ago. Nowadays, it is quite controlled, but it is very typical of poverty, okay, associated with poverty, with a lot of people living together. The Mycobacterium is the name of this type of bacteria, which not only affects humans but also uh, other mammals, okay, as much as tetanus. Salmonellosis is a bacterium that is typically transmitted through food. Okay, remember the homework, the transmission through food. All right. Then another kingdom, okay, which can cause diseases. We can have some pathogens. Is fungi. Okay, the typical disease that was mentioned in the homework is athlete's foot, a typical fungus that grows in the skin between the fingers of the foot, for example, and in other places in the body. The name of this genus of fungi is called Trichophyton. Uh, an example of how these diseases can affect other organisms, such as plants. The PSD is a very, very common fungus in soybeans, and it obviously affects the crops, okay, when they grow for food. And a very typical disease in, especially in hairy animals like dogs or cats, is the tinea. Okay, in Spanish it's very, very similar, and the fungus is called microsporum, and it forms round uh, patches of peeled skin in the skin of these animals. Finally, another kingdom that is prototypes, other unicellular organisms that are also another group that we can find pathogens among this group. Malaria is the very typical disease, one of the diseases that is mentioned in the book and in the IGCSE exam, and it's called by a microorganism called Plasmodium that affects our red blood cells. Okay, it's a parasite of our red blood cells. Chagas, that is a very common disease in the north of Argentina that is transmitted by an insect called the vinchuca, and the aftas, that are typical wounds in the mouth that you might suffer, and they are caused by an amoeba called Entamoeba histolyticum that is very, very common living in our skin, in our mouth, or even in our digestive system, and every now and then it might cause some diseases. The question we were talking about before in many of these examples is malaria the same as Plasmodium? Is Chagas the same as Trypanosoma? I mean, obviously, what all these diseases have in common is that to be able to suffer malaria, you must be in touch with the Plasmodium. To be able to suffer from Chagas, we must be in touch with Trypanosoma. That is, these organisms must be in or on your body. Okay, this is a must, of course, right? In any of these cases. Now, how do we catch these diseases? And sorry for the informal language, but it is typical. Okay, another the term is they are contagious diseases. Okay, how do we catch these diseases? Okay, of course, here we have three examples of two examples of pathogens. Bacterium on the left of the guy, coronavirus. You know this guy very well, and a mosquito, which is not a pathogen in itself. In any case, it is a parasite, but within the body of the mosquito, yes, we might find the plasmodium that causes malaria, the flavivirus that causes dengue, etc. Uh, when when these organisms enter in our body, we call that an infection. Okay. Now, yet an infection. Oh, wait, a little detail. The infection can only happen in the case of a mosquito if the mosquito has first stunk in the body of a person who has the plasmodium, has taken the plasmodium itself, and then it passes it into the body of another uh, human. Okay, instead the other organisms can be passed, for example, directly by coughing or sneezing, or directly by touching, yes, the other person that is sick. Now the question is, an infection is the same as a disease? Yes, infection is the same as a disease. That is, and you might have heard in um, public media, yes, in social media, this question that the people who are infected from coronavirus, yes, they are called coronavirus positive, but they don't suffer the disease. They are asymptomatic. Okay, well, that's the point I wanted to get to. These microorganisms might infect the body by entering in the body, but then, will they cause the disease? Well, it depends on a lot of factors, among which are our body defenses. But that is another issue that we will see in the next